Hello and welcome to the Board Game Nights. This episode we're going to be covering the Resistance and the Resistance Avalon. Now, in our last video on hidden roles, we left these specifically out to give it a bit more of a more detailed analysis. In a game of the Resistance, there is the blue team, which are trying to overthrow the government through subtle and subverted means, and spies who work for the government trying to stop the Resistance from being successful. The Resistance is played with between 5 and 10 different players, and you choose the player board according to the number of players. On this board shows the number of spies and individual mission information. We'll get into that in a little bit. So everyone will be given one of these roles as either the red team or the blue team. And now the red team will know who each other are, which they can use to their advantage. So once the game begins, the active player will choose a number of people to go on a mission with them, and that number of people is determined by the player map, which is related to the number of players. So for instance, in this case, the active player will choose 2 people to go on a mission. So they'll take 2 of these gun tokens and give one of them to one player and then one to another. Everyone around the table then votes on whether or not they think that mission is going to succeed with these approve and reject tokens. If the number of reject votes that come back is greater than the number of approve votes, the mission does not go ahead and the active player moves to the player on the left. This will proceed until either a vote succeeds or 5 votes fail. If that happens, the spies, the red team, immediately win the game. So, once the group approves the mission, each player will be given a success and a fail card. Blue team members, or legitimate members of the Resistance, must play a success card. However, spies may choose to play a fail or a success depending on what they think will fool people. If even one player returns a fail, the entire mission has been sabotaged and the red team score a point. If all of them come back as a success, the blue team score a point. The first to 3 points wins the game. So basically the goal of this game is you have the red team, or the spies, trying to sow doubt in the group by trying to give misinformation, trying to lie to people about their identities, and the blue team trying to work out who's real and who's lying. So members of the Resistance can try and work out who are the spies based on their behavior or their actions. Their behavior might be that they're giving away signs of lying, or their actions like rejecting missions that have succeeded, meaning that there was probably a spy that knew that there was no other spies on that actual mission. So I've explained the rules to the basic game of the Resistance. However, there was a special version of it released called Avalon, and now Avalon adds in the additional characters that have additional powers. So instead of the dystopian cyberpunk world of the Resistance, Resistance Avalon is set in King Arthur's court, and there's characters in there like Morgana and Mordred and Percival and Merlin, and other things like that. And each of those characters have special abilities. The big difference with Avalon is the addition of the character Merlin. Now Merlin knows the identity of all of the red team members, which means that he is a valuable ally of the blue team. However, one of the red team members is actually an assassin, and if at the end of the game they work out the identity of Merlin, they can assassinate him if the blue team were going to win, and instead the red team win. So Merlin will want to try and influence the group as much as possible to avoid all of the spies, but they don't want to make their knowledge apparent to the group. Otherwise the assassin will simply kill them and they'll lose the game. So for instance, there's a number of other characters that you can add into the game to give an advantage to either the Resistance or the spies, depending on who's winning or losing a lot. For instance, there's Percival, who knows the identity of Merlin, which means that he will instinctively trust them no matter what. And then there's things like Mordred, who is unknown to Merlin, which means that there was always one spy that Merlin doesn't know. Which means you can always change the game to suit your current group, and you can adjust the difficulty accordingly. The Resistance is a really good game if you like lying to other people. Pretty much the premise of it is that if you're a spy, you're expected to do nothing but lie for half an hour, otherwise people will just not send you on a mission and you'll pretty much be completely useless. So there's a lot of fun to be had just trying to see how consistent you can make your lies and try and have a bit of fun with that. There's also the other side of it, where if you're playing as a Resistance member, trying to deduct what's going on can also be a bit of fun, as you're trying to unravel the lies that people are telling you and try and work out what's actually true. So it's a bit of a social deduction game. It's a bit difficult to be really good at, and it's all in all a great game. That is a filthy lie. So the fundamental premise of the Resistance, with this lying and social deduction aspect of it, is really fascinating for about the first 6 or 7 plays, maybe a bit more if you really enjoy the game. But eventually, after a little while, your group might start to come across a couple of problems. And this is what we found. So one of the first problems with the Resistance is the fact that there is so much lying going on, and some people don't take especially kindly to that. You might think that, oh, it's just going to be a good bit of harmless fun, but when it's someone that you really trust lying to your face and you can see how well they lie at you, it might make you feel a little bit uneasy, for instance. In some extreme cases, relationships might even be damaged over this game, which speaks volumes for the game's overall theme and design, but means it's probably not the best game to bring out around certain people. Another thing that can happen though is one player might not be especially good at the game. Let's say they haven't as much experience. And one person can actually drag down an entire team because it might be very well that the Resistance need everyone on the team to know who the spies are, and the one last Resistance member just doesn't see all the clues or all the evidence. And so everyone else who's been playing the game exceptionally well loses because of one player. And that can be very frustrating for some people. And finally, the biggest issue that I have with this game is its ability to reach a meta state really easily, whereby your group knows the optimum strategy to get through it. The spies always know that you let the first mission get through so people think that you're legitimate, and then the second mission will go down in similar ways. And if you try to deviate from this sort of optimum strategy, oftentimes you end up with a case of the spies will just lose because the optimum strategy is the best way to play the game. And if you play that optimum strategy, the spies will more often than not win unless some weird combination of things happen. It just, the thing is, the game funnels in. The more and more you play it, the more it funnels into just playing the same every single time, because there's no reason to deviate from that. Another issue I have with the game is with the Avalon version of it, the introduction of Merlin. Now Merlin gives the blue team a massive advantage, but it does introduce a weird situation where sometimes the red team, the spies, can win just on pure luck. Consider a game where you're playing as Merlin and your team wins and you've played exceptionally well. You've managed to sort of throw off everyone off your scent as playing as Merlin, and no one knows who Merlin is and it's a complete mystery to everyone. The spies then reveal their assassin and have one guess at the identity. If there are 4 members of the Resistance and they guess wildly, there is a 1 in 4 chance that the spies will win the game, even though they just lost and played a terrible game. So it seems to be that there's this terrible luck element introduced to try and balance out Merlin, and it seems to be a little bit broken. These criticisms of the Resistance come out after playing the game about 5 or 6 times. The first few times we played it, we had an absolute ball, and it is still in some ways a very good game, but it just suffers from this metagame syndrome, and it doesn't have a hell of a lot of replayability. So if you like the sounds of this game and think you'll be playing with a lot of different groups, it might be worthwhile picking up, but otherwise I'd have to say it's probably not worth it. There are other games that do what the Resistance does a lot better. The games we reviewed in our previous Hidden Roles video are games that introduce other elements around this Hidden Roles mechanic to try and make things more interesting. If you're looking for something that focuses on this deception theme in a little bit more of an interesting way, I would highly recommend checking out Ultimate Werewolf, which introduces a lot of characters in a different setting, in a different way that works a bit quicker and a little bit easier and a little bit less intense and doesn't end up with a solved solution like the Resistance. And finally, if you're looking for something a little bit more lighthearted, would highly recommend 2 Rooms and a Boom, which is currently a print and play game which is about to be released later this year through a Kickstarter project. This one basically adds in a lot of hidden roles in a very absurd style, which makes it a lot more fun, a lot more fast-paced, and generally a lot more enjoyable than the Resistance is, in my opinion. We hope you enjoyed our critique of the Resistance. Please subscribe to our channel, leave a comment, and we'll see you next time at the Board Game Nights.
What's that, Sam?
Oh, that's nothing.
I see some red.
I was never on your side! We hope you enjoyed our critique of the Resistance. They're both upside down, aren't they?
They're both upside down.
Double mistake! Players can try and work out whether...
That was awful. Alright.
Players! Players!
Okay, what the hell was that? And something's sticking in my butt.
I don't know. There's a stick in your butt.